there's this tension within the party, and a lot of times I hear people say, why can't we be more like the Democrats in that they always vote together, right? There's like one thing you can say about the Democrat Party, they always seem to stick together when it comes down to it. Now they have their own problems, New York City being one of them, if you're watching that. But by golly, when it comes to vote, they're a solid block, they're consistent in that way. And yet we have this tension within our party. And there's a good reason for that. It's because the grassroots have been getting involved. And so for a long time, for many years, for decades, the Republican Party was sort of run by the moneyed interests and or what some people would call the establishment. And that's still a powerful force out there because that money's not going away. But the grassroots, what do we want? Because we are the grassroots more, for the most part, and we would like less government, right? And what does the establishment and the moneyed interests want? More government, right? Okay, so there's this fundamental tension that we have within the party. And so calls for unity, I've always heard it come from the establishment folks, and what it generally means is, hey, all you grassroots people, sit down and shut up. We don't want to hear from you. We want you to know your place, and then when it comes time to vote, we want your vote, and you can contribute to our campaign and maybe knock on doors and stuff, but that's enough. No more about that. And so that's how unity has always sounded to me and to a lot of us. So as a lead-in to Larry's presentation here and then, I'm going to say, a lot of times we get focused on the politicians themselves and those who don't vote the way we might like them to. No offense to politicians. But I think it's a little misplaced. The fact is people tend to respond to the environment that they're in. And the political environment is rife with money, for one thing, and reputation and other things, but by golly, the moneyed interests are very, very powerful. And you could take someone who wants to go into politics for the right reasons and put them in that environment, and the next thing you know, they're tempted in a way that they can't resist. And they end up voting with the folks that we wouldn't like. And it takes a lot of fortitude to resist that, because it's everyone that goes into it. You know, my representative's Jackie, right? And she's just had her first term, and she was aces, right? She voted the way we'd like her to vote. But it's hard. There's a tremendous amount of pressure to bend to the will of the moneyed interests. So I tend to offer a little bit of grace to the politicians who end up being tempted and end up yielding to that temptation. It's the money behind them that's the real problem, right? That's where it's that influence that really hurts. And so that's my own personal view. I know that's not always the most popular view, but I just thought I'd share that and get it on tape. All right, so with that said, oh, and by the way, just to be clear, this organization, we're about being the grassroots. We're about representing what the grassroots want, which is, you know, constitutional, limited government, all the things that our party platform for the state says that they're for, but then don't really act on it. So, in light of that, I think we're going to go to Larry now, who has some specifics with regard to some of our different legislators. We were just focused on the House tonight, or just the House? Okay, all right, so Larry, come on up.
Thanks, Scott. You want to show the first slide, Kelly? Yeah. There's several organizations that are conservative-leaning organizations that put scorecards out from time to time. And I've taken the liberty of going through several of those and trying to consolidate the information into something that means more to us. If you go to, there's several, the ones we're looking at tonight, I got some information from CPAC, Conservative Political Action Committee. They do scorecards almost every year. Club for Growth does them frequently. The American Action Fund has started doing them. I had not seen them before, but I think last year and this year they've started doing scorecards. And then there's a Freedom Index also that's putting out scorecards. CPAC, Club for Growth, and American Action Fund provide quite a bit of detail. This one right here, this is if you go to the links, and I'll put the links up there so you folks can go to those links and actually look into more detail about what I'm talking about tonight. I just condensed some of it down to a much smaller amount of information. But the AAF 2025 scorecard is about 26 pages. And just looking at the way they do the House, what they'll do is they'll have, in this particular case, they've got, I think, 31 issues that they looked at and said, how do our representatives vote on those issues? And then they list the representatives and put whether they voted right or not, and then end up with a score. And each of these organizations does it in a somewhat different way, but the results generally tend to come back to almost the same thing. The American Action Fund is a nationwide group. They're based in Texas, and they focus on liberty, legislation, education, economy, healthcare, civil liberties, and constitutional government. So of the ones that I've looked at, there's the most detailed. First scorecard. All right, if you look at this thing, I've broken it down. I've taken the information detailed and I've broken it down, and I'm just showing voting records for the leaders of the House, for our delegation, and for the Freedom Caucus. So you can see the difference in how folks vote. For your information, Merle Smith, you probably all know, is the Speaker of the House. David Hoyt is the Majority Leader. Tommy Pope is the Speaker Pro Tem. Brandon Newton is the Majority Republican Whip. Bill Sanford is no longer there. He was one of the committee chairs. But you can see this is 2023 results on the top left-hand corner. CPAC, FI, and Club for Growth. I took those scores and then averaged the three of those scores on the far right-hand corner in red. So you can see Merle Smith has an average voting score of 31, Tommy Pope 29, go down the list. Then if you go look at the York County House delegation, which is right below that, you can see their scores, again, for CPAC, FI, and CFG. I put the three scores from each of those and then averaged them out. And you can see Ray Felder had a score of 34 on average, Tommy Pope 29, Brandon Guffey 39, David O'Neill 71. If you look at the average of all of our delegation, without David O'Neill, it's 33, which almost matches the House leadership. And basically what that tells you is that they're basically doing what the House leadership tells them to do. They vote in sync with the House leadership. Yes, sir.
Larry, when you look at the scores, they all go on scores up to 100?
No, they don't, not necessarily.
Because if one says 17 and they only have 25, that's a good score.
Some of them are 100, most of them are 100. One of them is, I think the Freedom Index is not, I don't remember now off the top of my head. Club for Growth is 100, AAF is 100. They vary a little bit in how they do it.
Okay.
But still, it's representative of how they're voting.
Okay.
Then if you go look over at the Freedom Caucus, which is on the right-hand side, you can see the scores go way up.
Yep, there's your 100.
So you're looking at the leadership with an average of 32. Our delegation without David O'Neill, 33. And the Freedom Caucus is at 88. And the next one over, a little bit further over on the other side of the blue line, is the 2024 scores. And I did the same thing in 2024. 2024, I did not have CPAC score, but I did have an AAF. So there's different organizations scoring that, but nevertheless I had three. And you can see the averages there for the leadership. You got an average score of 22. Our delegation without David O'Neill is 24. So again, our delegation without David O'Neill matches the leadership almost exactly. And then you look at the Freedom Caucus, and their score is, 86, I think. So again, it goes way up. The Freedom Caucus, David O'Neill was part of the Freedom Caucus. He's no longer a rep, as you know, but Jackie Terraville is. Slide 3 shows the 2025 scores from the American Action Fund, and I consolidated the 23 and 24 information onto that sheet also, and then added 2025 American Action Fund. That's the only one I've gotten on 2025 so far. I'm sure CPAC and some of these other organizations will come out with scorecards, and we'll talk about more about this later on in the year. But again, you see the leadership averages 16. If you look at our delegation, it's about 20 without Jackie's vote. And you look at the Freedom Caucus, it's 92. Again, the disparity is just stunning. And I can tell you that I didn't list all the House reps, there's 124 House reps. The ones that are not shown on here, the ones that are not a member of the Freedom Caucus, pretty much, there were only, in 2025, only 3 of them got a score over 50. And those 3, I think, are members of the Family Caucus, and the Family Caucus votes very conservative on social issues, but doesn't necessarily vote the right way on fiscal issues and small government, although they're starting to do more of that, I think. So it's pretty obvious that, you know, only the Freedom Caucus are the only ones that are standing up and representing us and voting the way we'd like them to vote. And I'll give you some examples of some of the things that they looked at in these scores. I'll give you some examples. In 2024, Bill S-912, which was this is an energy bill they've been talking about, and I think they're going to pass it if they haven't already. They created a whole new department called the South Carolina Nexus Office within the Department of Commerce. They're going to be planning green energy projects and stuff like that. They're going to be picking winners and losers. Estimated initial cost about $50 million. So basically we're going to have a bunch of attorneys controlling our energy future, and I'm not real comfortable with attorneys making decisions about energy. Another bill that was looked at on this in these scorecards was S-915. That's the Health Czar bill. That created a huge healthcare empire with a czar. Creates an executive office of health and policy to oversee the other departments. So this created a whole new level of bureaucracy, and the costs are going way up. They also signed a contract, I think for 20 years, with a gentleman by the name of David Stern. Our health departments have been in buildings owned by the government, by the state of South Carolina. As a result of this new bill, they're going to rent new buildings from this guy, David Stern, to the tune of $325 million over a period of 20 years. And my understanding is that what they're paying this guy is way above the average cost per square foot for offices like they're going to be using. It so happens that David Stern gave over $70,000 in contributions to Henry McMaster over a period of 3 years. He also gave $3,000 to every Senate and every House rep. This guy, David Stern's got like 100 LLCs, and with each LLC, he can hand out money. He can take 5 LLCs and give McMaster $3,000 from each one, and he does that kind of stuff. And as a result, he's one of the money interests, and McMaster and our House and Senate leadership do what he asks them to do. And he's going to make a lot of money out of this. I should have voted no on this bill, but the bill was passed 98-15. David O'Neill was the only member of our county that voted against it. We also, some of these scores are based on amendments, proposed amendments. S-5100, there was amendment number 28 that was proposed to reduce spending in what's called the Office of Resilience, and I'm not sure what that is. They keep creating these new organizations down there and spending more money, and I don't know what they do. I mean, most of them are staffed by attorneys. Basically, there was an amendment that tried to reduce that by $16.2 million and eliminate about 50 positions related to green energy policies. And that was voted down. They voted the table at 99-16, so the amendment was killed. And again, the only people, the 16 were the Freedom Caucus people. David O'Neill, again, was our only rep that voted to not table that, to actually reduce the budget. The S-5100 increases the Department of Public Health budget by 8.6%. Medicaid spending is going up by 5.6%. Public television by 4.5%. There's $20 million in the corporate welfare slush fund, and there's $27 million going to the South Carolina Arts Commission. So they're raising our taxes and collecting money from us to give $27 million to liberals that do arts. Not all liberals, maybe some Kurds doing art. I just don't know of any, but they're probably out there. In 2025, there was a H4025, which is a budget, that's your budget for 25 and 26, years 2025 to 2026. It's a $39 million budget, $39 billion budget, and includes over 800 new state employees. This new budget they just passed includes over 800 new state employees, increases our income tax by 25% on some citizens, and a lot of them here in York County. This is one of the counties that are going to get hit hard by that tax increase. It funds left priorities like DEI hiring, it funds climate change research, and Planned Parenthood. The Freedom Caucus members voted against the budget because it includes all these things. It does have some good things, and of course, just Savin's bragging about the bill, well, we're increasing teacher pay, we're increasing pay for law enforcement, and those are good things. I mean, there's some good things in the bill. But in order to get the good things, you got to vote for all these bad things, and we ought to be able to take those out by amendments, and they just won't do it. Another example, there was an amendment to that bill, H.O. 402 Amendment 10, that would have eliminated funding for the Arts Commission. Last year, the commission awarded grants to projects including gummy bear sculptures and sexually explicit material. The vote should have been yes to delete the spending, but only 18 members voted that way. The bill was tabled, so that spending is still in there. Basically, our overall budget is increasing by 10% this year and 59% over the last 4 years. Now, we've got a super majority of Republicans in the House and the Senate. And our budget went up 10% this year and 59% in the last 4 years. 30% of the House members, for your information, are lawyers. 51% of the Senate members are lawyers. I would also note that John King in 2025, John King, our local Democrat rep, voted his score was better than David Martin's and Tommy Pope's. That's all I got to say. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Mayor.
Question?
Yeah, one question. Could you explain to us if we could double the Freedom Caucus, how that would benefit us from 15 up to 30 or so?
Well, I've heard figures of about 35. I'm not sure. I think as long as we can get to the point where the super majority of establishment doesn't have a majority and can't pass anything without some of the Freedom Caucus helping them, then we're there. And I forget what the number is, but we increase it to a certain point where they can't get things passed unless the Freedom Caucus helps them. And I think it's 35 members or something like that, I'm not sure. But we desperately need to get more people that will actually represent us down there. So please look around, consider running yourself and look around for people who will. We've got to find good candidates that'll go down there for the right reasons. They did increase their pay, and I don't have a problem with that personally. I mean, it did it for the wrong reason probably, but it might help us get good candidates down there. Still not a lot of money, but it might make it a little easier for some people to actually deal with it from a financial standpoint. But we desperately need to find better candidates to go down there, so please be looking constantly. Any other questions? Swain?
I know what you said, we need to find better candidates, but is there any time we could invite the people in the Republican caucus who have bad voting to come explain why they voted that way? Is there any way they come? I don't know whether it makes a difference or not, but at least people would hear what they had to say and why they voted the wrong way.
They vote that way because the leadership tells them to, and leadership votes that way because the money and interest tells them to.
Well, I like hearing from you.
I mean, they're not going to tell you the truth, Wayne. I mean, we've had them here and we've talked to them for years. You know that. You and I have been doing this for 15, 20 years, and they've always got these silly excuses. You take one of these scorecards, and I've done it before, so look at this scorecard, man. Your voting record's terrible. Well, that's just one scorecard. My voting record's not that bad. That was biased against me. My voting record's really good. But when you look at 4 or 5 of them, they all say the same thing, then they can start, they don't want to hear this kind of stuff. You had a question?
Well, I just had something to say. I really think we need to close the primaries.
Well, there is a bill that will close the primary that was introduced in the House by the Freedom Caucus, and there's about 16 or 17 names on it, and the only names on it are those in the Freedom Caucus. Tommy Pope's name's not on there, David Martin's name's not on there, Randy Liggins' name's not on there, Keith Sessions' name's not on there. They won't sign. They all signed up to this other bill that says, okay, you can sign up as a Republican, register as a Republican, you can register as a Democrat if you want to. But independents, if you don't want to register as a Democrat, you can still vote in the Republican primary. So it really doesn't accomplish it. And quite frankly, closing the primaries won't solve all the problems, but it will make it easier and better if we don't have a bunch of independents and Democrats voting in our primaries.
Yeah, we just had a meeting with one of our elected officials, and he
Pardon?
was saying, about the closed primary, some places there's different definitions. He says in North Carolina, they close primaries. The way it's worded is Republicans vote for Republicans, Democrats for Democrats. Like I said, independents can vote for either one. And we said, wait a minute, no, that's garbage. The primaries for the party to determine who they want to run, and if you're not in the party, you don't get to vote. Tough.
Exactly.
And we all got to get that message to them quickly.
Well, over the years, I've mentioned that to various elected representatives, and they've laughed at me, literally have laughed at me when I mention, oh, there's no way that's ever going to happen.
But that's
But there's more and more pressure, and even Michael Johnson, who was one of the ones that laughed at me 4 or 5 years ago, is now saying, well, we need to be thinking about closing the primaries.
Well, and that's why we have people, like we're from Lancaster, we're getting more counties to work together. Library started with us 4 years ago, because we all have to tell them. We can't just, the president of the club tells them, that's one thing. We all got to write to them and tell them.
That's the other thing. We're working, myself and other people are working with other counties around the state trying to do the same thing we've done here in York County, and that is get more involved, get our grassroots people actually involved and paying attention to what's going on. I've been spending a lot of time doing that, as Scott knows. I told him one reason I needed somebody else to be chair, because I need to work on these other counties and make some changes, and we're trying to do that. If you know people in some of these other counties that are conservative and think like we do, and make sure they're involved in their local county.
We need to have Democrats have competition in the primaries. So
Well,
they have to vote Democrat.
The problem is that they know, in York County, for instance, they know a Democrat's not going to win, so they don't bother to run anybody. One candidate will run occasionally, they get so few votes. Some counties it matters. I'm hopeful that, I'm hearing, I think there's 2 Democrats going to run against Lindsey Graham for that seat. And I hope so, because if we can get 2 Democrats running for that Senate seat in Washington, then the Democrats will have to vote in the Democrat primary, and if they vote in the Democrat primary, then they can't vote in the Republican. That might help us.
Right.
But normally, we don't get that kind of help. There's no competitive Democrat primary, so the Democrats all come vote for the most liberal Republican that they can find. Any other questions?
One suggestion, I did something like this last year for our group, before one of the elections. You might want to look up the ACLU, because they have a rating system. And what's really interesting, if you look at the ACLU, productive the people with low scores, and the ACLU have very high scores.
Yeah.
And when you see that, Lindsey Graham is 75, but on ours he's like, whatever.
Well, I used to follow the South Carolina Policy Council a lot. They used to be pretty strong. They had a president there, a real nice lady, and I worked with her a lot years ago. But I saw they put out a score here recently, and they had Merle Smith at excellent, and Tommy Pope at excellent, and so Policy Council will not get any more money from me in the future. All right, thanks, folks.
Stand this meeting to call 3 chairs.
Okay. Bruce?
Hi, very quickly, I just wanted to say, earlier you were talking about block voting, that Democrats vote in a block. That's what happened in Charleston, and that's how we got through McKissick, because they blocked out people. But also, you're talking about Brandon Newton, and you're talking about bringing in Democrats or other people to speak and explain themselves. We have the majority, we have the supermajority, yet we have Democrats in charge of certain committees. And how did that happen with a supermajority? And so when I approached Brandon Newton and I asked him about it, I said, I understand that we have that. He says, that must have come from the Freedom Caucus because they're all liars. And I showed him the article and he said, well, just because the Freedom Caucus tells the truth, that doesn't mean they're not liars. And he actually said that. So if you bring them in, you're going to get some double talk.
The establishment here conducts their business like the Democrats do. I mean, they'll lie, cheat, do anything to stay in positions of power. They don't care about the issues. They care about staying in power, and that's what we're up against.
Thank you. We're going to be banging this gong a lot for the next 2 years as we go through the primaries, and the expectation is that we may not get closed primaries. between now and then, so we're going to be very involved in recruiting candidates to run against some of the establishment types. And then we're going to be really focused on getting out the vote, because our primary turnout is pitiful. Well, let me say this. There's room for improvement. How about that? And if we can get our people out to vote in the primaries, then if we run a good candidate, then we may be able to take some down. We do actually have the momentum at this point. The Freedom Caucus is growing. The number of counties in the state that are run by grassroots like we are is growing, and the establishment folks are fighting a rearguard action at this point, but it's slow. We had hoped to have more success at the state level at the GOP this year. Didn't make it, but we made some inroads, so progress, we'll take it. All right. Now, our guest speaker is Mike Burkholdt. I'd like to introduce him. And Mike, come on up. He is running for Comptroller General, which is really, there are some interesting things going on around that role, as well as the treasurer. And so Mike's here to talk a little bit about himself and that role. So, Mike.
Very much. It's very charitable to say about the Comptroller General's office. By the way, I ran across a great website 2 weeks ago called State Navigate. And they only have South Carolina and Virginia up. But they have each representative and each senator, how they vote, and also campaign finances are linked to it. So just a tool. It just very recent, yeah, very recent. So State Navigate, yeah. Okay, so Mike Burkholdt, I'm running for the Comptroller General's role. It'll be open next June in the primary. I lived here in Rock Hill for a long time, well, maybe 6 or 7 years. I was the congressional candidate in the 5th District in 1998. We had a great race. How many people were here in 98? Not many, huh? Wow, it's interesting. We got swamped. We had a Republican governor named David Beasley that just got swamped over video poker and lottery money. And so the entire top of the ticket got washed and I didn't win. But that was a nice time. And I also was a town administrator for the town of Clover for about 3 or 4 years. That was a great experience. I'm married to my wife Melanie. We've been married for 30 years now. My daughter Annabelle is over here with me, and my nephew Eli. But it was about, let me try to do the next thing. We'll keep going now, so we'll do the next slide. This is my first presentation, so I actually plan on getting some feedback from you guys. So I went down to Charleston and I started a company. It's a health tech company. We do lots of data, lots of patient records. We have a lot of processes to match patient records with pharmacy claims, so I'm very comfortable with data. And as I was, as we were growing that company, we were one of the fastest growing companies in the country, one of the best places to work regularly, voted on some of the South Carolina's top 25 companies. That's kind of, somebody had asked me what's my qualification to run for this role. I've built a nice company that's very data centric. Lots of finance, all these claims reconciliation. So we'll go on to the next slide. So here's where I am. I've run for office. I have a beautiful family, got a nice business. I love this state, and I just think this state could be the best state in the country. I mean, we've got amazing natural resources. We've got nice industry. We have so many things going in our favor that other states don't have. In my business, I travel around to a lot of different states. So it's a manageable size. Our population is less than Metro Atlanta. I mean, it's just about close to the same size. And so it seems very manageable to make this the best place to be in the country. And I live down in the Charleston area. This area is clearly thriving. It looks nothing like it did when I was here last year, maybe 8 years ago. Really beautiful. I would love to have this level of prosperity in the rest of the state, right? There's just so many pockets in the state that are left out. And so I think that in order to do that, you can go into the next slide, I'd like to make it the best state in the country, and I can contribute to that in a way. My thought on that is we need to cut the cost of government. We need to eliminate the state income tax. We need to return money to our taxpayers, fix our roads, and improve our education system. That's my 5, you know. You guys may have a different 5, but if I'm picking the top 5 and thinking that's what I would do to try to fix our state. And so, what does this have to do with the Comptroller General's office? We'll go on to the next slide. So what does the Comptroller General do? So the Comptroller General serves as the state's chief accountant and financial watchdog. Now that's what the Comptroller General is supposed to do. I'm going to move over here because I got a bit glare. You can still see me, is that okay? The Comptroller General establishes accounting rules, maintains the accounting system, and serves on the state's fiscal accountability board. We're actually one of 9 states that has this position elected. It's not typically an elected position like Georgia has a CFO. But it's an old process in our state. I think I've got a slide that goes over the next one. Okay, why is it important to you? Well, it oversees all of our money. That's the main reason. And you guys were just talking about the votes to spend the money. We've got a real transparency issue here. And so I think the problem is that poor fiscal stewardship can lead to lower bond ratings, which means it costs the state more to borrow money to build roads. And it just generally raises our operating costs. So while it's not the thing that most people get excited about when they go to a rally, I mean, good government actually matters. I mean, just operating a nice, efficient government system. And so let's go to the next slide. So here's how spending works in South Carolina. The General Assembly creates the budget and apportions money. Now, when a department head wants to spend money, or anybody wants to spend money, they go to the Comptroller General, and they have, their invoice and their receipt and the request, and they ask the Comptroller General for approval to spend that money. He checks several things. Is this approved? Is there money in the account? Did they follow the right procedures when purchasing this? And that's a very important thing to remember. And if he approves it, he then issues what's called a warrant to the Treasurer. This is our 1895 Constitution, which makes a lot of sense in 1895, a little less now, but this is how it works. Then the Treasurer pays it. This is a classic, just separation of powers. The guy that has the checkbook is not the guy approving the invoices, okay? So basic process there. So let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so my plan. What I want to do is I want to take this office that has all the accounting and all the invoice approval, and I essentially want to go to the state, because all the data sits in that office. The Comptroller General owns the accounting system. By statute, the Comptroller General is responsible for the accounting system. And so let's go on to the next slide. Here's how I think this happens. I think many of you might have seen, and I probably have a slide about it. This is how I got into this spot, standing here in front of you, as I was scrolling through my phone, and I saw that the state had lost, misallocated, misplaced, all these different things, $3.5 billion. I kept going on to the next article, and it was almost like I had seen something out of the corner by, and I'm like, hold on a second. How much money did we misplace? And I went back to the article, and it was $3.5 billion, and it led me to all these questions like, well, how do you lose $3.5 billion? Did somebody steal it? Where has it gone? Am I going to get a refund back now? I mean, all these different questions just came up about $3.5 billion misallocated. And so here's what is going to need to happen. We're going to need to have a watchdog culture, we're going to have an online checkbook, and then we're going to stop wasteful spending. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, watchdog culture. Next slide. Okay, so these are the headlines. So there's a $1.8 billion amalgamation, $3.5 billion accounting error. The controller acknowledges the accounting error. This is a problem too, folks, because the controllers acknowledged the accounting error in 2023. The controller was told in 2017 in what's called a material adverse finding, which matters in businesses and boardrooms, that you've got a major problem in your accounting. So he was warned of an issue, and I think it was a $200 million issue back then, that he's misallocating funds, but the staff never changed it. So he was warned several times about that. And so the controller has known that this is a problem, and now it's being exposed. Well, let's go to the next one. So here we are, a notification of material weakness in 2017. The issue is ignored for 7 years, 6 or 7 years. It comes out in misallocation in 2023. So here's the problem. The Comptroller General has resigned. That doesn't solve the problem, because there's got to be staff members in there that knew about this too, right? This is a problem of culture in the office. That's my view of that. And so it's a staff of about 50. It's not going to be everybody, but there were employees that were willing to come to work for 7 years in a row, knowing that we had misallocated funds. That's a problem. We're actually having a Securities and Exchange investigation over the whole thing. That's cost the state, I think, about $8 million so far. So just a willingness to ignore basic accounting principles that could have been fixed very quickly at no cost have now cost us at least $8 million. This is a problem with executive leadership that the controller, the last controller general, just didn't have. And so I also think that if I'm fortunate enough to win the seat, it's something I'm gonna have to address with that senior staff, right? You can't have senior staff hiding major accounting problems in your state government. That should not be allowed. All right, so let's go to the next slide. The online checkbook. Now, of all the things that I think I can do for everybody in this room, everybody in the state, I think the very best thing that I can do for you is put all of our expenses online. They're not available. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, this is just basic transparency. I was saying earlier, there's a great, wanting to take down a node, there's a great website. It's checkbook.ohio.gov. I've talked to the treasurer in Ohio to put this up. We were looking at it, right? In great detail. I mean, in kind of excruciating detail, where every expense goes, why it goes, where it goes, who spent it, I mean, which contractors it went to. Because right now, we're blind. And by the way, so are many of our legislators. I had lunch with Jordan Pace yesterday. Blind to where a lot of our money goes. And that's a problem, right? I mean, like, we have people that we've elected to run this enterprise. They don't have what in my business we would call basic dashboards. Just basic dashboards saying, okay, of the money we've allocated, this is how much money we've spent. This is where it went, this is who it went to. They don't have that basic information. That stuns me. And I mean, to a degree, they're asking me if I can, you know, hey, we'd like to have you in that seat. We would love to see this information. This is really a revelation to me that our state's running without people understanding how much our departments are spending in which places. So that needs to be fixed. And actually, it can be set up so that you have the same information they have. And so you're asking your legislator informed questions, right? Tell me about this expense. They can go find it out and they get back. I think if anything, it'll change the discussions that we have in the state moving forward. And so, look, even if I just have this seat for 4 years and I get this checkbook online and that's the only thing that I ever do, I will have done well for the state. That's my view. Okay. So, look, okay, here's a good example of it. You know, you see, and there's more slides y'all can have, but the best thing to do is go to the website because you just kind of imagine, at least I do, I can get kind of in the details on this. But you sit there and you imagine, well, I wonder what's in South Carolina's checkbook. I mean, what are we going to find in there? And so essentially you have the state budget by function, year-to-date revenue, state spending by expense type, employee salary, state contracts, year-to-date state spending. Should all be there and available for everybody to see. Okay. Next slide. Third part, stop wasteful spending. Okay, you might remember that I mentioned to you, the next slide. I mentioned to you the warrant process. So you want to spend money, you go to the controller with your request. Controller reviews your request, sends a warrant over to the treasurer. Well, I went and met with Curtis. He's receiving 50,000 warrants a month. 50,000. There's no way anybody's looking at that, right? Nobody's looking at 50,000 warrants a month to see if basic things like does the invoice match the amount requested, right? Has this already been requested once, right, by the same vendor? I mean, like any of those basic things that you would want to be looking over if it was your house, right? I mean, my wife and I go through our expenses. I mean, it's kind of like you kind of do it once a year. House insurance, auto insurance. Why do I have Paramount Plus? I mean, all these things that you just kind of start shedding off that came up over the years. So nobody's doing that in our state government. So just when I think about it, I think like, you know, a boat in the ocean just collects barnacles over time. There's going to be all kinds of things in our government that we don't need to be spending money on. And so I do think I'm going to have a great opportunity sitting in that accounting system to start pointing those things out. Many things that our legislators may know about, many that they may not know about. But let's point them out and let the citizens give feedback into these things, okay? All right. So, and I also mentioned, this is the language from the state law. Upon receipt of the requisition, this is this is something I never would have gotten into when I ran for Congress, by the way. This is much more detailed. accompanied by invoices or other satisfactory evidence of the propriety of the payment and itemized according to standard budget classifications. So the controller gets to control all of this. That means if I'm in the seat, I get to define that, which means we can put a lot of friction into state expenses in that warrant process. And so I'm really excited about that. This office has been very sleepy. It hasn't been a very active office in years. It has the opportunity to really show everybody in this room and around the state where all of our money's going so they can ask questions so we can then start putting some friction into state expenses. And look, here's my view on a lot of this. I mean, certainly I want to save money, so I want to eliminate state income tax. But look, even if we're spending 15 or 20% of our budget in the wrong place, I mean, I've built a business and I know that if you're spending $1 in the wrong place, it's not helping you in the right place. So if all we have is just the opportunity to say, look, this $4.5 billion could be spent improving schools or roads or wherever we decide it needs to go, that's a win too. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to reduce our tax burden, streamline government, and spend money in better places. Okay, so our next slide. Online checkbook deep dive. I'm just going to have some more slides. This is all Josh's, the Ohio Treasurer's slides I'm going to show you, but we'll just kind of go down a few of these. Just keep rolling through the slides. Next, okay, so that's the same one. We'll go to the next one. State contracts, year-to-date spending, state employee salaries, popular reports, rainy day fund, state spending by line item, general fund balance, school foundation funding, coronavirus spending, program data sets, state spending by county. I mean, all these things can be available to us. And I would love to make that available for you. So I think,
Hey, Mike?
yes.
Got a question.
Yeah.
About that.
Yeah.
You talked to the folks in Ohio about what they did here?
Yeah, right. I had a call with Josh, who was the treasurer at the time we did this.
And how long did it take them to get from whatever whatever manual situation they had to this?
Right, so Josh did this in 2015, I think, is my recollection. So that was a long technology time ago.
Okay.
This is a series. There's a reporting tool called Tableau. This is a Tableau reporting on top of a bunch of databases. So essentially, what you're doing is you're taking your. At least I think this is how they did this. Is they exported all the data out of the accounting system, so it's not like a direct feed into the accounting system, and then they report on that data. The way I would do it is I would start monthly. I would start quarterly or then monthly, then kind of dial it down to weekly and daily. He did it overnight, and it made a lot of people really mad. That's his story to me. So the story that was relayed to me is it made the legislature mad, and it also made the governor mad, who was Kasich at the time. Okay? Now this is what he also explained to me, though, is that since then, though, the legislators really enjoy it because they can use it to ask the department heads when they come to budget, why are you spending money this way or why are you spending money that way? Law enforcement, federal and state, have used it to catch fraud and put people in jail, right? And in the end, it was John Kasich who really didn't like this because he was running for president, 2016. And he was afraid that putting this online was going to give his opponents the opportunity to say, well, you're not a good custodian of state funds. But if you remember, because I had forgotten this, John Kasich in his race ended up running around saying, in Ohio, we put our checkbook online. Do y'all remember that? He was running around saying that we put our checkbook online and we're going to do it in the federal government too. It's a very common sense type of thing to do. And while there might be some initial resistance to it, I just think everybody will be very happy to have this tool at their disposal because right now our budget, so the state is roughly 14, the state budget's roughly 14 billion. There's other funds, so you've got your general fund, okay? Then you've got other funds, that's about 14 billion, which is cryptically named. Other funds are what I would used to call an enterprise fund, but it's funds like the gas tax that has to go to roads, lottery funds that have to go to that, school tuition that has to go to tuition, so that's other funds. They have to be used for exactly what they come in for. And then we've got about a $14 billion federal match for things like food stamps and Medicaid and roads. So that's essentially how you get to like a $42, $43 billion budget. And so now that I've shown this, I'm curious, I'd love to know what speaks to folks in the room. I mean, is it the online checkbook? Yeah, good question.
I've got my
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you.
So like, we have half the population of North Carolina, but a bigger budget. What's up with that? The thing is, 2 months ago, we had SC Doge SC here.
Yep.
You know about them and plan to work with them.
So yes, I've had dinner with Ron, and he's already contributed to my campaign.
All right.
Okay.
That's simple.
But what about the budget, North Carolina versus South Carolina?
I don't know. I don't know what to say about that.
4.5.
Yeah, I don't, there has to be some anomaly because they've got twice the population.
And twice the.
And it's a more prosperous state than South
Twice the
Carolina.
area.
North Carolina is a much more prosperous state than South Carolina. We need to change that. That's what I'm about to do. Yeah, yes, sir.
So, I'm somewhat cynical about the legislature, maybe they like the way it is.
Sure.
So what can you accomplish without the legislators' involvement? Can the comptroller's office do all this on its own, or does it need the legislature to give money or pass laws to accomplish it?
It's a great question. So I had three things. I want to fix the culture. I do get to hire and fire. I'm not going to just go fire everybody. That would be a disaster. But I get to put pressure on people and have expectations for work, right? Bring in new people that are excited about. It's a tight crew. It's only 45 or 50 people. That's a nice tight crew, right? You can build some culture and some ethos in a group like that, to where they feel like they're stewards and they own the stewardship of your tax dollars. And so you want to recruit for that and find people that take that job really seriously, and they feel proud to be a guardian of your money, right? So the culture is one thing. That can actually absolutely be done without the legislature's involvement, right? Putting the checkbook online. Putting the checkbook online is going to be a series of exports to a database, and then putting that database online. Now, whether the state's going to pay for it, or Doge pays for it, or we all pool some money together and pay for it, it's going online. If I have to personally pay for it, it's going online, because it's all FOIA-able information, right?
Yeah.
I had somebody who's mentioned the Policy Council. There's a reporter who works for the Policy Council named Rick Brundrett. Had a nice call with Rick. He struggles to get any kind of information out of the state on things, and so I think that's ridiculous. Everything that we spend is our money, right? I don't want to say your money because I'm part of yours too. It's our money, and it should just be available. It's not. This is money they take from us. It's not voluntary dues or something, so I think it should be available. You guys have you have more transparency in the York County GOP budget than we have for the state budget. Yes.
So along those lines, are you aware of any legislative barriers, any legal, anything in the law that says thou shalt not,
No. To a degree, it'd be nice if somebody came out and said, you should not, right? Start to expose them, right? Yeah, yes ma'am.
Well, I like that you go to St. Andrews.
Oh, thank you.
That's a plus. I was at the original one teaching BPS, but I also want to say that you're a businessman, and that's a wonderful plus. And I really would like to see South Carolina reconsider their property tax on seniors' cars. They already own their car. My car is a 2019, and I had to pay close to $300 property tax on my car, and I'm only 70. It's like, whoa, it's paid for. What is up? But, I know other states do an inspection. And, we do keep, and that actually is a smart thing, because then we can keep up on our car rather than charging people hundreds of dollars in cars.
I agree. I chafe at my. I'm not a senior, and I chafe at my auto bills, and I've still got income coming in, so I totally understand that. And as we have more and more seniors in this state, it's a great place to retire. We've got to be looking at that. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Back to your original question on what intrigues us the most.
Yes.
I'm going to go back to this accounting system, because I have been in corporate America for system, when you get the invoice, you have to put those same cells, and if they don't match, it flags, and you have to reconcile that. What? I mean, are they using like, dominoes or stones or something?
No, so.
Abacus.
That doesn't make any sense
Right,
at all.
right. So,
Sorry.
oh, no, I want to try to answer your question. So there are some things I don't know. I mean, I just want to be clear about that. There's some things I don't know about what's happening in the state government. And I do know that it is on a system called SKIS, the system is called the SKIS system. It is an SAP system. I know that,
And they modified it.
and that was probably a package they were sold too, right? It needs to be customized, because you know how much more we paid for that. I do know that a lot of these expenses, maybe even the 1.8 billion that was most recently addressed, and the 3.5 was a misallocation of funds. So my understanding it was money that was designated for the universities and counted as available cash when that's the way that's been explained.
I would say that one piece of advice is, like you were talking about, you doing your own household bills, we all balance our checkbook.
Right.
We all balance our checkbooks. Whether we do it on paper, or we use Quicken, or
Yes.
something else, we all do that. And for there to be no transparency, and for them to allow this system, whatever it is, to occur, where you've got 50,000, warrants coming in, and there's nothing in this day and age that's automating the checks and balances there. To me, that is a huge talking point as you move forward, because that's something that every single person in South Carolina balances their funds some way, and yet the state's not.
They're not. No, there's not. There's no insight into it, right? I mean, like, if you're talking about a family going over your expenses, what you do is you write them all down, right? And this is how much we're making, this is how much we're spending, this is the car payment, et cetera, et cetera. We don't have that available for them to even look at. And they guess how much money we have coming in, and we have more money, they kind of, my experience is they spend more money.
Yeah.
So our budget is tripled in the past 7 years, I think. Yeah, percent, not tripled.
The 1.8 billion, is that funds we don't have or we don't know yet? We never have got a good answer for that.
I don't know the details. What I can do is I can tell you I've talked to a lot of people, and here's what I understand. When there was money at the end of the year and they weren't quite sure what to do with it, the controller's office would tuck it in places. And as the SKI system came into being, right, as you started to go into this big implementation with a very structured accounting system, these things started getting exposed, and that became a problem, and there were less places to tuck it. And I'm just kind of...
So we're not short $1.8 billion.
I don't think it's missing. I think it was just they didn't know how to account for it, and so they allocated it in a different place.
Well,
Yeah.
didn't your final report say if we could afford the $7 million invested? Oh, sorry, it never existed. That was the
Well-
final report from the legislature.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, it didn't exist. You were wrong.
yeah,
$1.8 billion.
that's right. There was a lot of egg on everybody's face over that. Yes, sir?
It sounds like the controller's office has been using too much discretion in putting money into funds. The accounting system of the government has different funds, as you mentioned.
Mhm.
And they are squirreling away in funds that should go into, and who knows if they're putting post-its on their computer, reminding them where it is or how they did it, but it's clearly slipped people's minds.
I agree. I mean, there are standards for government accounting, GAAP standards for government accounting. We should be following. The people that are I've hired a lot of accountants. I mean, I have and it's particularly accountant, I wouldn't even say accountant type of people, because when you're reconciling large groups of medical claims, it's a similar type of work. You should be able to recruit really bright, structured people who like to follow rules, you got the GAP rules, and the rules are followed. And that's one of the nice, predictable, reliable, quiet things about accounting, is that if you hire the right people with the right motivations and put them in the right role, everything works. And it hasn't been, which is why I go back to the culture issue early on. Yeah. Yes.
It seems to me it'd also be a great tool for just commenting about myself, because we can see how our money's being spent, and it allows us to go to our legislators.
That's
I don't
right.
like that you're spending X, Y, Z on this pet project for you. So it allows
Right.
us to see that, and that's one way we can get back into being part of the budgetary process with the legislative branch.
That's absolutely right. It'll give you the information you need to go talk to your legislator and ask them questions about things that you think are misspent. Right, which is natural pressure,
We don't
yeah.
want that.
No, you don't, right?
Like, we don't have a way of knowing.
What are we doing? Yes, sir.
Do you have the money to hire this excellent staff to get her done?
I think there's enough money in the budget to hire a good staff, yes.
And you have the authority to fire? Are these people exempt positions? This is a state position, right?
It is a state position. I have been assured, I've met with several people, because one of the big things is, are you stuck with the crew that's there? Right. That was one of my first questions. That's why I've gone to visit enough people to have confidence that I'll be able to build the team that I want. Right. Fundamentals, the office is a dumpster fire right now, in my opinion. To go to the state and say, look, we need to change some staff to not be allowed would be super problematic, right? So there are legal ways to do it, and there are proper ways to do it. Some people will probably self-select out once they have a new boss that's going to hold them to standards. There have been a lot of people in that office for a long time. And some of those folks, quite frankly, you're going to want to keep them because they just do a good job at what they do. But there are going to be a few in there that have caused this office to go sideways. That's my experience with groups like this.
We need somebody like you in there.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
One way, maybe, how many days a week are they supposed to report to work?
That's a good question,
Is
right?
that working from home?
Right.
Usually, if you just say back to work at 5 days a week, half of them will quit.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, that's because they got another job. So they
Right. Well, we're gonna dial down on that. I grew a tech company, and we had pretty difficult hours and high expectations. And I understand you're state employees, but you can find people. It's not super difficult to find people who would enjoy a state job and reliability with some good responsibility and a nice culture. That can be found in Columbia. I just don't have any doubt. It might take a little while, but that can be found.
So, we've complained about the budget growth. Is that due to the legislature looking at the last budget in order to make the next budget, and they don't look at the actual spending because they don't have the information from the controller's office?
I don't know. I don't know yet. What I do know is that this type of tool doesn't exist. And I've had the process explained to me by legislators several different ways, none of which, to my mind, show a consistent, informed budgetary process based upon expenses, right? Some expenses in a department should be one-time expenses because I assume everybody here has worked at a company at some point or other. Sometimes a company tries something and it's an absolute failure, right? That's fine. What you learn from your failures is what not to do again. And so you want a culture of innovation in government. You do want to have something that's not super innovative, but you want people trying some things. And so, but what you don't want is to keep funding that failure over and over again. And I think we've got a lot of that in government. And so I think the best opportunity is to kind of start dialing back on those types of things, inform our legislators on where their money's being spent, on programs that went nowhere. My view of it is, right now, I'm pretty confident that these state agencies have paid lobbyists going to lobby the legislature. Well, that's just a problem, right? And so you can look at this in several different ways, and I think a good way to look at it, at least to start to look at it, is give everybody everybody in Columbia the benefit of the doubt. What if the existing legislature could just operate the state better if they had better information? I think that's a legitimate thing. I mean, if you're trying to make you're trying to go from 0 to 100, that might get you to 60, right? Just having the information might get you to 60. Now you're going to have this other 40% that you still want to, be pretty active about, but it can be a big win by just having the information out there. I mean, it's like us trying to discuss, it's like us trying to discuss the York County GOP budget, and we don't have the information with us. But we're going to vote on spending anyway. Right? It's like that. Yes, sir?
Would you say the system's broken and we've got to fix it or reinvent it?
You've been paying attention, right?
I think this office is broken. I just think this office is broken.
Mike, do you have any declared competition?
I do not have any declared competition.
Do you anticipate it?
I don't know. I mean, somebody might jump in, and here's the thing about this office, is this is a lot of work. I just want to be clear about that. This is, and it's not glamorous. I mean, nobody's excited to go spend time with the Controller General. It's like, maybe you guys are, but I mean, the average citizen is going to put him to sleep talking about it. But I mean, this is exciting for me. And so I just don't know if I'm going to have any competition or not. I'm excited about it. It makes me enthusiastic. I like the idea of being able to come and contribute this. I mean, the Lord's put me in an interesting place. I mentioned earlier on, I didn't mean like 6 months ago, and I didn't know I was going to be here doing this. But I have an opportunity to do it. It's a seat that needs to be fixed. I know how to fix it. I've run a big race before. I mean, I had a really big congressional race here in this district. And so all these things line up for me being in the surprise position of being what I feel like is the person to go fix this and turn this into a high-profile seat and start exposing information. I should also tell y'all, since y'all have been gracious with your time, how am I doing on time? Am I okay on time? I should also let y'all know, I live down in the Charleston area. There are more than a few, and I'm sure there are up here too, and this is a piece that I'm excited about, really senior executives who have retired to Charleston or Sullivan's Island where I live and Mount Pleasant, who are, they're going to golf and they're going to do these other things, but now they're actually a little undertasked. And there's a lot of talent that I could bring, who I've been talking to, who I can bring to look at this. So you can start to put things verticals like in healthcare, somebody in transportation, somebody with skills in purchasing policies. There's a lot of folks that would like to have some input into this kind of DOGE process. And I think that's really exciting. So you're not just going to be relying on me. I'm going to be bringing in a lot of other people that can fix this. And I know how to do that. That's one of the things that I'm good at. Yeah.
The next item. First of all, this is out of the ordinary, I know, but I have been so impressed with a show that I've seen. Again, out of the ordinary. But is anybody here familiar with The Art of the Surge, which is a behind-the-scenes documentary of the Trump campaign, first season, and then second season, election night, and then leading into the inauguration and the beginning of the administration. First season was done, it's put on by Tucker Carlson, his new network. You can find it there. The second season is on Fox Nation. This is, I don't make a commission on this sale, okay? But the behind-the-scenes footage that they have of Trump and his campaign and his administration is unbelievable. So if you have any interest in politics, and I'm thinking if you're here late in June on a Thursday night, you might, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's so unique. And Trump has The Art of the Surge. And he has put together such an amazing team of people, both during the campaign as well as transitioning into the administration. It's amazing how competent these people are from wall to wall. So I recommend that. Another note, Tim Steele and I had the great opportunity recently to head down to Columbia and visit with the state EC and Drew McKissick, fresh off his wonderful victory at the state convention. It was my second time there. I got to proxy for Tim one time last term, but true to form, he's a clever man, and you don't get in that position without being a clever man, and he's devious, and he had to make a point of taking Pickens County's Republican Party out of commission because they were taken over, like we were last term, by the grassroots. Kelly was there the night before the convention when the dirty deeds went down, and he's had all his people there, and there's no good reason for what they did. They could have just as easily picked York County and done the same thing to us. Larry presented what happened at the convention, but in the EC meeting, he took it another step. He didn't give them the death penalty because he didn't have the votes. Again, that's progress. He didn't have enough EC votes in the crowd to give them the death penalty because you need 3/4. But, again, clever, he said, well, you're in timeout. So timeout until we meet again, and then you can come back with a plan for how you can get back in our good graces. He only needed a simple majority in order to accomplish that, and that's what he got. And it was just an amazing thing to watch. So there is a good reason, I don't know exactly what it is, but there's a good reason why the powers that be are clinging so strongly to the state GOP leadership. They have undertaken some amazing things, underhanded things, in order to do that, and we saw that firsthand the other day down there. So